have plenty of fun. By Enid Blyton. The day was too hot to do anything but laze. The five were quite content to do that on their first day together again. Soon they would want to plan all kinds of things. But the first day at Kirin was a day for picking up old threads, teasing Timmy, getting into the feel of things, as Dick said. Dick and Julian had been abroad for 4 weeks, and Anne had been away to camp. George had been alone at Kirin, so it was wonderful to meet together once more for 3 whole summer weeks. At Kirin too, with its lovely beach, its fine boating, and its exciting little islands across Kirin Bay. As usual, the first day or two passed in a kind of dream, and then the children began to plan exciting things to do. On the third day, the phone rang.
I'll go. Hello? Oh, hello. Yes, that's right, it's Julian. Uncle Quentin. Shall I fetch him? Hello? Hello? Funny.
Who was it, Julian?
He didn't actually say, but I think it was the American. You know, the one who came to lunch the other day. He said I was to tell Uncle Quentin that he was coming here tonight. Late, he said, and that Uncle Quentin was to wait up for him, because it was important.
Dear me. Is he going to stay the night, then?
He didn't say, Aunt Fanny. I'm sorry I couldn't find out any more. Just as I was saying I'd fetch Uncle Quentin, he rang off.
How mysterious. And how annoying. I only hope nothing's gone wrong with the work your uncle's doing. I know it's tremendously important.
Perhaps Uncle can ring him up and find out a bit more. Where is he, anyway?
He's gone down to the post office, I think. I'll tell him when he gets back.
Uncle Quentin seemed as surprised as anyone else about the phone call, and was inclined to blame Julian for not finding out more details. The next morning, the children all kept out of Uncle Quentin's way. He was obviously feeling very cross. They heard him grumbling loudly to his wife. They heard him slam down his desk lid, as he always did when he was bad-tempered, and then he settled down to his morning's work. A little while later, Anne discovered that Aunt Fanny had put a camp bed in the corner of the room she shared with George. She was very cross at this news. She certainly wasn't going to have anyone else in her room. She was about to march off and tell her mother what she thought about it, when the study door downstairs opened, and a voice bellowed out.
Fanny! Tell the children I want them. Tell them to come to my study at once.
Gracious! Whatever can we have done? No idea.
We'd better go anyway.
We're here, Quentin.
Good. Because I've got something important to say that concerns all of you. You remember those 2 friends of mine, scientists working on a scheme with me? You remember the big American?
Yes?
Well, he's got a daughter. Let's see now. She's got some silly name.
Berta.
Don't interrupt me, Fanny. Yes, Berta. Well, Elba, her father, has been warned that she's going to be kidnapped.
Whatever for?
Well, it so happens that he knows more about a new scheme we're planning than anyone else in the world. And he says that if this girl...
Berta?
That if this Berta is kidnapped, he will give away every secret he knows to get her back. What's he made of? How can he even think of giving away secrets for the sake of a silly girl?
Quentin, she's his only child and he adores her. I should feel the same about George.
It's a good thing you don't know any secrets. You give them away to the milkman. This is no laughing matter. Anyway, he came to ask me if we take this Berta into our own home for 3 weeks. By that time, the scheme would be finished and launched, and our secrets will be safe.
But why has she got to come here?
She has no relations in this country, dear, and no other friends they can trust.
Don't worry, Aunt Fanny. We'll look after Berta.
Thank you, Julian. I know you all will.
Huh. When is she coming, anyway?
Tonight, by boat. We'll let Joan into the secret, but nobody else. Understood?
Of course.
I suppose so, but I bet Timmy will hate her.
Now don't go and make things difficult, George. We're all agreed it can't be helped.
So for the rest of the day, the children all tried to have as good a time as possible and went out in George's boat for a long row to Lobster Cove. Aunt Fanny had again packed them a wonderful lunch. They had enough food for tea too, and didn't get home until the evening. The sea was calm and blue, and the children could see almost to the bottom of the water when they leaned over the side. The sky was the colour of harebells as they rowed into the bay. Then they made their way to Kirin Cottage. After supper, all four went upstairs, Anne and Dick yawning loudly and setting the others off too. Timmy padded behind them, quite glad that George was going to bed so early. They were all asleep in 10 minutes. The boys slept like logs and didn't stir at all. The girls fell fast asleep for about 4 hours, and then George was awakened by hearing Timmy growl. She sat up at once. After a minute, Timmy growled again. George heard the sound of quiet footsteps on the stairs. Then the bedroom door was slid softly open, and 2 people stood in the light of the landing lamp. One was Aunt Fanny. The other, of course, was Berta.
Tell Timmy not to make a sound, George.
Shh, Tim, shush.
This is Berta, George. She's been terribly seasick, poor child. Oh, now let's get these things off.
What am I to call you?
Oh, you'd better call me Aunt Fanny, as the others do, I think. I expect you know why you've come to stay with us, don't you?
I didn't want to come. I'm not afraid of being kidnapped. I've got Sally to look after me.
Oh, Sally, dear.
My dog. She's downstairs in the basket.
A dog? We can't have a dog here. Mine would never allow that. Would you, Timmy?
Well, I brought my dog, and she'll have to stay now. I wouldn't go anywhere without Sally.
Mother, tell her how fierce Timmy is. I won't have anybody else's dog at Kirin Cottage.
Don't be silly, George. Now, Berta, come on. Let's be getting you into bed.
Pops, that's my father. Always let me have Sally in my room, sleeping on my feet.
She will not. No dog sleeps in my bedroom except Timmy.
Now, don't talk any more. We can settle everything tomorrow when you're not so tired. I'll look after Sally tonight for you, Berta, I promise. She can sleep in Timmy's kennel. Now, lie down, the both of you, and go to sleep.
All right. Good night, Mother.
George was first awake in the morning. She at once remembered the events of the night before and looked across at Berta in the camp bed. The girl was asleep, her wavy golden hair spread over the pillow. George leaned across Anne's bed and gave her a sharp nudge.
What? What's the matter, George? Time to get up. Look over there. Berta's arrived. Where? Oh, yes. She looks all right. She's soppy. And she brought a dog with her. Timmy won't like that. Where is it? Down in Timmy's kennel. Berta actually wanted it with her in the bedroom. Imagine. I can't think what Timmy will say. Neither can I. It's a pity Berta isn't our kind. Look at her pale face. She looks really weedy, doesn't she? I'm sure she couldn't climb a tree or row a boat or... She's waking up. Oh. Hello. You weren't there when I went to bed. I was surprised to see you in the morning.
I came in the middle of the night by boat. The sea was so bumpy, I got real sick.
Bad luck. You didn't enjoy the adventure then?
No, I guess I can do without adventures. I'm not keen on them, especially when Pops gets all excited and worried about me.
The thing is, adventures come up all of a sudden, like a wind blowing up in the sky. And we're all in it, whether we like it or not. I say, look at the time. Isn't it time we got up?
Yes, unless Berta wants to have her breakfast in bed. I bet she always does at home.
I do not. I hate meals in bed. I'm going to get up. Gee, I wonder why the room was so full of brilliant light. Now I know. What a view. And what's that little island out there?
That's Kirin Island. It belongs to me.
Belongs to you. I bet you wish it did. It's really wonderful.
Wonderful? Can't you say wonderful? It's got a D in the middle, you know.
Yes, I'm always being told things like that. I do try, because I've got to go to an English school. My. I wish that island belonged to me. I wonder if my pops could buy it.
Buy it? You donkey, I told you it was mine, didn't I?
But you didn't mean it, did you? Yours? How could it be?
It is George's. It's always belonged to the Kirin family. That's Kirin Island. George's father gave it to her.
Great snakes, really? Aren't you the lucky one? Will you take me to visit it?
We'll see.
Hey, you girls! Are you getting up? We'll all be too late for a dip before breakfast this morning.
Berta's here. We're getting dressed now.
Are they your brothers?
Yes. That's Julian and Dick. You'll like them, I'm sure, won't you, George?
Yes. Come here, Timmy. Come away from Berta. You're making a nuisance of yourself.
Oh, he's not. I like him. He seems enormous after Sally. But you'll love her, George. You really will. What's that?
It's the gong to say breakfast's ready. Come on.
You sit down there, dear.
Right.
Who's this?
Now, Quentin, don't pretend you don't know. It's Elba's girl. Your friend, Elba. She came in the middle of the night.
Ah, yes. Oh, glad to have you here. Let me see. Now, what's your name again?
Berta.
Ah, yes, Berta. I know your father well, you know. He's doing some wonderful work.
He's always at work. He works all through the night sometimes.
You often do that yourself, Quentin, though I don't suppose you even realise it.
Really? Don't I go to bed some nights, then?
You're like my pops. Sometimes he doesn't know what day of the week it is. And he's supposed to be one of the cleverest guys in the world.
Oh, yes, yes.
Coffee, Quentin?
Now, what's this? Unless I'm very much mistaken, here's a letter from your father.
Coffee, Quentin?
I'll see what it says.
I'll take that as a yes.
Some for me, too, please, honey. It's all about you,
Her name's Berta.
About you, Berta. I must say your father has some very strange ideas. Yes, very strange.
Like what?
Well, he says here, she must be disguised in case anyone comes to find her here. And he wants us to call her by a different name.
Well, that's sensible.
But bless us all, he wants us to cut her hair short and dress her as a boy.
I won't be dressed as a boy. I won't have my hair cut. I won't.
After breakfast, Berta went with Anne to get Sally. She was a tiny black poodle. Everyone but George exclaimed in delight. Timmy stood by George, sniffing hard to get a smell of this new dog. The poodle stared at him out of her bright little eyes, quite unafraid, her funny little tail wagging merrily. Then Timmy went up to her and sniffed her nose. He licked it gently, and then lay down in front of her. Peace reigned in the house for a little while. George and Anne went to help Joan the cook with the washing up. She'd been astonished that morning to find a fifth child added to the household, but had been told that after breakfast she could go into the sitting room and hear an explanation. Soon all 5 children and the 2 dogs and Joan were in the sitting room with Aunt Fanny.
Joan, you've always known what important work my husband does. Well, Berta's father does the same kind of work in America, and he and Quentin are working on a great new scheme together.
Oh, yes.
Well, We've heard some very distressing news. Berta's father has been warned by the police that it is possible Berta may be kidnapped.
Kidnapped?
I'm afraid so. And held to ransom. Not for money, but for the scientific secrets that he knows. So Berta has been sent to us to be kept safe for 3 weeks. By that time, the scheme will be finished and made public.
I see.
Berta is going to the same school as Anne and George, and it's a good idea to let them know one another first.
We understand. I think we can keep Berta safe all right, don't you?
Yes, but her father has now put up some more ideas he wants us to follow. He says it would be best to disguise her as a boy.
Jolly good idea.
And to give her another name, a boy's name. He wants us to have her hair cut short.
Oh, please, not that. I hate it. Girls with short hair like boys look so silly.
I think we'll have to do what your father says, Berta. You see, if anyone comes here looking for you, they would never recognise you if you looked like a boy.
But my hair! How could Pop say I'm to have my hair off? He always said it was wonderful.
Your hair will grow quickly enough.
But what about clothes? Girls look frightful in boys' clothes. Pop's always said so till now.
You won't look any worse than George does. She's got boys' clothes on now.
I think she looks awful.
Well, I think you'd look horrible too. You wouldn't even look like a boy. You'd look little girlish, silly little sissy boy.
George wants to be the only one.
Well, I'll go out and buy some things for Berta this morning. Then shall I cut her hair?
You can certainly go shopping for Berta if you like, but I'd rather you didn't cut her hair. You'd make her look like a scarecrow. Now, what about a name? We can't call you Berta anymore, that's certain.
Well, I don't want a boy's name. It's silly for a girl to be called by a boy's name, like George.
If you mean to be rude to me, I'll...
Oh, George, you and Berta will be the death of us.
And I'm sorry, but you'll have to have a boy's name, Berta.
Well, let me use my second name then. It's used for a boy too, only then it's spelt differently. It's Leslie. It's a nice name, I think.
Leslie? Yes, it rather suits you. All right then, everything's settled.
Not quite. I just want to say that you mustn't let Leslie, out of your sight at all. The local police here know that we have Leslie with us, and why, and anything can be reported to them at once. There. That's about it, I think.
You know, it's very odd, but she does look rather like a boy.
Oh, let me see. Where's the mirror? Oh, I look awful. I don't know myself. Nobody would ever recognize me.
Splendid. That's absolutely right. Nobody would recognise you now. Your father was right to say cut your hair off and dress you as a boy.
Stop crying now, Berta. Leslie, come on. You've been very good to sit still all that time. I must think of a little reward for you.
Oh, please. The only thing I want is to have Sally Dog to sleep with me.
Oh, dear, Leslie, I really can't have another dog in that little bedroom.
Berta could have her camp bed in my room. I don't mind the dog if Leslie doesn't mind sharing.
Oh, Joan, that's good of you. And your bedroom's in the attic. Kidnappers wouldn't think of looking in your room for one of the children.
Thank you, Joan. You're just wonderful.
Wonderful.
Yes, the word is wonderful. Won't you ever get it right?
I'd like to know how I can get on with my work with all this hooting and cackling going on. Who's this?
Don't you know, Father?
Of course not. Never seen him in my life. Don't tell me it's somebody else come to stay.
It's Berta.
Berta? Now, who's Berta? Seen her that name before.
The girl you thought might be kidnapped?
Oh, Berta Elba's girl. Good heavens. Why, your own father wouldn't know you. I just hope I remember who you are. Well, I must get back to my work now.
You children had better have lunch at home today. It's too late now to start making sandwiches for a picnic.
Is there time for a bathe?
Yes, if you come in at about 12 o'clock.
Good. Let's go then. Come on, everyone.
Soon they were down on the beach. It was fun to be 5, fun to chase one another in the sea, to swim under the water and grab somebody's leg. Anne laughed till she choked when she saw somebody heave themselves out of the water right onto George's back and duck her well and truly. It was Berta, and what was more, George couldn't catch her afterwards. Berta could swim much too fast. She could dive well too and swim underwater even longer than the boys could. Sally the poodle was a great success as well. Even George couldn't go on disliking the happy, dancing little dog. She trotted and capered about, and Timmy was her adoring slave. Another day passed peacefully by, and the 5 children and 2 dogs were out of doors all day long, swimming, boating, exploring, really enjoying themselves. Berta wanted to go over to Kirin Island, but George kept making excuses not to go. The others kept on at her, and eventually she said that perhaps they could go the next day. But when it came, something happened that upset their plans for going to Kirin Island. A telephone call came for Uncle Quentin, and immediately he was in a panic.
Penny! Penny, where are you? Pack my bag at once! At once! Do you hear?
Quentin, whatever is it?
Elva says he's found a mistake in our calculations. It's nonsense.
Why can't he come here and work? Tell him to come here, Quentin. I'll find a bed somehow.
He says he doesn't want to, while his daughter, what's her name, is here.
Oh, he's probably right. If any kidnappers followed him, they'd soon find out where she was.
Well, that's what I was trying to tell you. Anyway, I must go to Elba straight away, so pack my bag, please. I'll be back in 2 days' time.
In that case, I'll go with you, Quentin. I could do with a quiet 2 days.
Will you really come with me? I thought you'd hate to leave the children.
It's only for 2 days, and Joan is very good with them. They'll be quite safe. In any case, I'm beginning not to believe that tale about kidnappers. I expect Elba just got into a panic when he heard the rumour.
The children were told of the sudden decision when they got back to lunch that day. Joan had to tell them because Aunt Fanny and her husband had already departed. Then that night, when everyone in Kirin Cottage was asleep, a black cloud crept up the sky and blotted out the stars one by one. A low roll of thunder came. It was far off, only a rumble, but it woke Anne. She got quietly out of bed and padded over to the open window. Then she heard another sound, the chug, chug, chug of a motorboat. It sounded quite far out in the bay. Now she saw a light, very faint, out at the entrance of the bay. It shone for a while, moved here and there, and then disappeared. Anne was puzzled. She thought that perhaps the motorboat was behind Kirin Island. The island would hide the boat and its lights. But what was the moving light she saw? Was it someone on the island? Anne's eyes were getting so sleepy she could hardly keep them open. There was no more thunder and no lightning at all. She yawned and crawled into bed. In the morning, Anne had almost forgotten her watch at the open window the night before. The 5 children and 2 dogs went off down to the beach.
Look at Sally chasing Timmy in the sea. Aren't they having fun?
You're telling me. Oh, you smell of seaweed, Timmy. Oh, I don't want you lying next to me like that.
I say, look, all of you.
What is it?
There's someone on Kirin Island, though I can't see them. Someone lying down, looking through binoculars at our beach. Can you see the sun glittering on the glasses?
Yes, you're right. Gosh, what a cheek.
Cheek? It's a lot more than cheek. How dare people go on my island?
That reminds me. I thought I saw a light on Kirin Island last night too.
When?
There was thunder which woke me up. I got out of bed hoping to watch a storm, but it didn't come. Then I heard a motorboat far out in the bay, but I couldn't see any lights, except for a faint moving one I thought was on Kirin Island.
You could have woken me.
Well, I may have been mistaken. I was very sleepy.
Well, if there was someone there last night, I doubt if it's trippers. And it does seem a bit odd that anyone should be using the island to spy from.
Perhaps it's kidnappers.
Yes. If it occurred to them that Berta might be with us, it would be a good idea on their part to land on the island and use it to spy on the beach.
Well, I think we should go across now and chase them away, whoever they are.
First, we ought to consider whether that's a sensible thing to do. To go to the island with possible kidnappers there on the lookout for Berta. Leslie, I mean.
We could go without her. We could leave her with Joan.
That would be a foolish thing to do. Anyone watching us coming across would see that one of the 5 was missing and would guess at once it was Berta. No, if we go, all of us must go.
They decided to go to Kirin Island immediately after lunch and told Joan what they had seen on the island. She took a grave view of it and said they should ring the police, and Julian promised they would if they found anything suspicious. Soon all 5 children and the dogs were in George's boat. The boys took the oars and began to pull hard towards the island. Timmy stood on the prow as he loved to do, 4 paws on the edge of the boat. Berta gazed eagerly at the little island as they drew near. She'd heard so many tales about it. How lucky George was to own an island like this. There was a smooth inlet of water running between rocks, making a natural little harbour. The boat slid smoothly into the inlet and up to the beach of sand. Dick leapt out and pulled it up the shore. Then George led the way up the sandy beach to the rocks behind.
Welcome to Kirin Island, Berta.
Rabbits! Thousands of them! Why, they're everywhere. Are they tame?
No, but they haven't learned to run away properly either. That's because not many people come here and frighten them.
Whoever was here this morning scared them, all right. Gosh, don't let's forget there may be people here. Well, I can't see anyone so far.
Let's make for the top.
Cigarette ends. Look. Fresh ones too. There are people here, that's certain. Walk ahead of us, Tim.
What was that?
What?
I thought I heard something.
It's a motorboat. That's what I heard last night.
They're escaping. Quick, let's run up there. We may see them. There it is, a motorboat.
Pity we haven't brought our binoculars with us. Why didn't we think of it?
They must have anchored their motorboat out there and somehow clambered ashore over the rocks.
Yes, and if they came last night, they must have clambered to the shore in the dark.
It must have been the light of a lantern or torch you saw on the island last night then. They probably didn't want to be seen arriving on the island, and that's why they went to the seaward side. I wonder if they were men spying to find out if Berta is with us or not.
They all went back soberly to Kirin Cottage and told Joan what had happened on the island. A letter had arrived while they were out to say that George's mother and father were staying away a whole week. Complications had arisen, the letter said. Julian made up his mind to guard Berta every minute. Thank goodness they had Timmy. Nobody would dare do any kidnapping under Timmy's eye. He thought it was a good idea to put Timmy in Joan's room that night. In fact, if George agreed, it would be best to do that each night. Later that evening, the 5 children sat round the table playing cards. Julian and Berta sat side by side, as Julian was helping her. She looked exactly like a very earnest little boy, with her straight, close-cut fair hair. George sat opposite the window, with Dick on one side of her and Anne on the other.
Whose turn is it? Oh, yours, George.
Your turn, Dick. Dick, come on. Do buck up. You're slow tonight.
All right.
Hey!
What is it? What is it, George?
Out there! Look! A face! I saw a face peeping in at us through the window. Timmy! Timmy, quick, go after him! Where is he? Timmy! Where were you? Idiot! Jump out of the window! Go on! Chase him! Find him!
What on earth is going on in here?
Listen! Shut up, Sally! Listen!
He's got away, whoever it was. You nearly scared the life out of me, George, when you yelled.
Timmy!
Will someone please tell me what this is all about?
Where were you, Timmy? How dare you leave me just when we needed you? I'm ashamed of you, Timmy. You could have caught him easily.
Oh, don't! Poor Timmy!
You let me scold my own dog if he needs it. And you go and scold yours too. I bet Timmy followed your horrid little woolly pet into the kitchen. It was her fault, not his.
I wasn't!
Shut up, George! Your temper gets us nowhere.
I think we should all go to bed, all of us. I don't like this one bit. I shall ring up the police and warn them. Leslie, you come with me straight away.
I think perhaps you're right, Joan. I'll lock up everywhere. Come on, girls.
Timmy was astonished and upset to find himself handed over to Berta and Joan. He cheered up a little, though, when he saw that Sally was going to be with him, and trotted rather mournfully up the attic stairs to Joan's room. Joan soon got Berta into bed, and then undressed herself. She fastened the window and locked the door. She gave Timmy a rug in the corner, and Sally jumped up on Berta's bed as usual. On the floor below, the two boys followed the same procedure, and so did Anne and George. Doors were locked and windows fastened, though it was a hot night, and they were all sure they'd be melted by the morning. Anne fell asleep, but George didn't. Then she heard the sound of a door being unlocked. It sounded as if it came from the attic. Was it Joan unlocking her door? What did she want?
Who is it?
It's me, Joan. I brought Sally down, George. Timmy keeps trying to get up on Berta's bed with Sally and she can't go to sleep. So will you have Sally, please?
Oh, blow. How's Timmy?
All right. I'm glad to have him up there tonight with all these goings on. Well, good night, George. Sleep well.
Come in here then and settle down. Oh, why do I have to put up with you instead of my Timmy?
What's going on?
Sally's in here. Joan brought her down. Now I'm getting back into bed, Sally. You lie there. Just settle down now. Just be quiet, will you? Right, that does it. I'm not having you jumping on my bed like that. It's bad enough just having you in here instead of Timmy. I'm jolly well going to take you downstairs and put you in Timmy's kennel. You can spend the night there.
Good idea. Then I can get some sleep.
Now, where's my dressing gown? Right. Now come here. Oh, stop wriggling. You're going in the kennel, and that's that. Stop wriggling, I say. How am I going to open this door with you squirming? Here we are. What?
Right, this is the one. Yeah, the one with the curly hair, and this is her dog. Put him in the kennel quick before he barks the place down. And you, Missy, if you know what's good for you, you'll keep quiet too. Come on. Get him in there.
Next morning, about 7:30, Joan went downstairs as usual. Berta was awake and decided to fetch Sally from George's bedroom. But neither George nor Sally were there. Anne told her George had put Sally in the kennel and had probably gone down to fetch her back. Dick and Julian were awake and quite ready for a before-breakfast bathe. Anne joined them as they went downstairs. Then Timmy came up looking puzzled. He'd hunted everywhere for George and hadn't found her. The children decided that she must have gone for an early bathe. Soon all four were on the beach with the two dogs. Sally was very happy to be with Berta again, but Timmy was very downcast. They couldn't see George anywhere. They all gazed over the water, but no one was bathing that morning. Anne was becoming very worried. She began to think that something had happened when George went downstairs with Sally in the night. They went back to the house to see if they could spot anything. And as soon as they began to look near the kennel, Anne gave an exclamation and bent down. She picked up something and held it out to the others without a word. It was the belt from George's dressing gown. Berta at once began to feel scared. George's sudden disappearance had brought home to her the very real danger she was in. Julian shut and locked the garden door and called Joan. They had a very serious conference indeed. Joan was horrified.
I said we must lock the doors and windows. I said we must tell the police. And then George has to go down all by herself in the garden. If only she hadn't had the poodle. No wonder they thought it was Berta with Sally in her arms.
Listen, Joan, there are lots of things to do. First we must tell the police. Then, somehow we must contact Aunt Fanny and Uncle Quentin. It's so like them not to give us an address. Then we must decide about Berta. She must be well hidden away somewhere.
Yes, that's certain. I know where we could hide her. You remember Jo, the little gypsy girl you had an adventure with?
Yes. She lives with your cousin now, doesn't she?
She does. She would have Berta straight away if she knew about this. And nobody would think anything of my cousin having a child to stay with Jo. She often does.
Good idea. We could trust Jo to look after her.
What's she like, though?
You'll like Jo. She's a pickle. But her heart's in the right place.
Oh, yes. Now, come on, Leslie. We must hurry. Julian, is she to go as a girl or a boy now? A girl, please. A girl.
Yes, I think you're right. But for goodness sake, don't call yourself Berta yet.
She can be Jane. That's a nice name. Come along now. We'll have to pick out your simplest clothes.
I'll ring up the police and call for a taxi.
No, don't get a taxi for us. I don't want to arrive at my cousin's little cottage in a taxi and make everyone stare. Jane and I will catch the market bus. It'll take us almost all the way. Then we'll only have to walk down the lane.
Good idea. Oh, hello. Police? Yes. I'd like to report a kidnapping.
It wasn't very long before the police arrived. Julian took them into the sitting room and began to tell them all that had happened. In the middle of it, there came the sound of footsteps racing down the stairs. Then down the garden rushed Joan, carrying a small suitcase. Berta ran behind her, a different Berta now, dressed in a frock instead of jeans and jersey. When Julian explained where she was going, the sergeant frowned and told him he shouldn't have arranged that until he had consulted the police. Then the phone rang and Anne answered it. It was for the sergeant to say that the kidnappers had contacted Elba Wright and told him that they'd got his daughter Berta. And he was so shocked he'd promised to give them all they wanted. But when Dick said he'd better be told that it wasn't Berta the kidnappers had got, but George, the sergeant told him not to interfere or try meddling. It was most irritating. When the police had gone, the boys went outside to have another look at where George's dressing gown belt had been found. Sally and Timmy went with them. Timmy sniffed around a good bit, and then, nose to ground, went down the garden path to the front gate, pushed it open, and went through it.
He's following some kind of trail, Dick. That's what Timmy's doing. I'm certain it's George's.
Come on, then. Let's follow him.
Not so fast, old boy. We're coming too.
Where's he heading?
Into the woods by the look of it.
Where'd he go?
There. There he is. Timmy, wait for us.
He stopped.
What is it, boy? What have you found?
Car tracks. See? Well done, Timmy. They must have parked here, then crept to Kieran Cottage and waited for a chance to get Berta.
But they got George instead. And they wouldn't have got anyone if only she hadn't been ass enough to take Sally to the kennel. You know, these tracks were made by very big tyres, and I rather think they're American. I can go and ask Jim at the local garage. He'll know. I'll just sketch one quickly.
There's quite a lot of crisscrossing of tracks. When they got George, they must have pushed her into the car and turned it round. They made a mess of turning, though. They bumped into this tree. Look, there's a mark right across it.
Where? Yes, a bright blue mark. So the car was that colour. Well, that's something we've learnt. A big blue car, probably American. Surely the police could trace that.
Timmy's still nosing around. The picture of misery. Poor old Tim. Hello. He's scraping at something.
What's he got?
A comb. Did George have a comb like this?
Yes. She must have thrown it down to show us she was taken here. And look, what's that?
Her handkerchief. It's got her initial on. See? If only she had had a pencil too. She might have had time to write us a note.
That's an idea. Let's hunt even more carefully.
What's that piece of paper there?
Stop it blowing away, can you?
Got it.
Well?
It's George's writing, all right. The G there is exactly like the way she always writes the big G at the beginning of her signature.
What's it say?
Just one word. It looks like gringo.
Gringo? But what on earth is that supposed to mean?
Dick and Julian went back to Kieran Cottage and showed Anne the things they had found. Julian telephoned the police, and the sergeant said he would send his constable up to examine the place where the car had stood. But it was his opinion that the piece of paper wasn't of much use. It was a very miserable day, although the sun shone down warmly, and the sea was blue and most inviting. But nobody wanted to bathe, nobody really wanted to do anything but talk and talk about George and what had happened. Joan came back in time for lunch and told them that Berta was now safely in her cousin's cottage. Then there was a worried phone call from Aunt Fanny. She was shocked at the news she heard and told them that their uncle had collapsed. He'd been working very hard, and the news about George had been the last straw. Everyone went miserably to bed that night. Julian couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned, thinking about George. Hot-tempered, courageous George. He worried and worried about her, wishing he could do something. Then suddenly a stone rattled his window. Who was throwing pebbles? He went to the window and leaned out.
Who is that?
Is that you, Dick?
Joe! No, it's Julian. I'll let you in.
Don't bother. I'll shin up this tree.
Dick, wake up. Joe's here.
What? Joe, you say? Here? Tonight?
Hello, you two. I simply had to come. This girl, who calls herself Jane, told me all about how George had been captured in mistake for her. If I was there, I wouldn't let someone stay kidnapped because of me. Don't like her. She's silly. And I'm supposed to keep an eye on her.
Well, we've found out a few more things since Leslie. No, I mean Jane.
What do you mean?
I mean Jane. We've found out something else since Joan parked Jane with you this morning.
Have you found out where George is? I'll go and break in and get her out if you have.
Oh, Joe, things aren't as easy as all that.
I'll show you. George threw out this bit of paper with this one word written on it. Gringo, see? Does it mean anything to you?
Gringo. That rings a bell. Let's see now. Yes, I remember. A fair came to town a few weeks back. That was Gringo. Gringo's Great Fair.
Where did it go?
Fallenwick, I think. Then to Granton. Yes. I made friends with the boy whose father owned the roundabout.
Do you suppose this gringo could be anything to do with the gringo George wrote on the paper?
I don't know. But if you like, I can go and find the fair and get hold of Spiky, the roundabout boy, and see if I can find out anything.
Find out if this gringo has a car too. A big car.
All right. I'll find out. I'll go now. Here, you lend me a bike and I'll bike to Granton.
Certainly not.
Just thought you'd like to help. Might be this gringo has got George somewhere. Oh, come on, Julian. Let me have a lend to your bike.
No. Thanks very much, but I'm not letting anyone ride to a fair in the middle of the night.
Suit yourself. Well, I'd best be off.
Give our love to Jane.
Sean.
Phew, what a girl. Fancy wanting to ride all the way to Granton tonight.
Well, I'm jolly glad you wouldn't let her take your bike. It's a good thing she wouldn't dare to disobey you. What's that?
What?
My bike! She's taken my bike! The little monkey!
Next morning, Joan came running upstairs to Julian's bedroom with a note from Joe to say that she had seen Spiky and he was coming over at 11. She promised to bring Dick's bike back at the same time. She even managed to find time to clean it before she left home, and arrived with it so bright and gleaming that Dick hadn't the heart to scold her. Shortly after Joe arrived, a short, plump boy appeared. He had a mop of black hair which stuck up in curious spikes at the crown.
Meet Spiky, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. What's all this about then, Joe? I wasn't half scared when you came tapping at the window last night.
Well, the thing is, we're interested in somebody called Gringo.
Oh, Gringo? A lot of people are interested in Gringo. You know what we say at the fair? We say Gringo ought to put up a notice. All dirty work done here. He's a bad lot, Gringo is, but he pays us well.
He owns the fair, doesn't he?
Yeah.
The thing is, Spiky, George, that's our cousin, she's been kidnapped.
Kidnapped? Oh, really?
And we found this piece of paper with the name Gringo on that she must have dropped.
What do you mean, she? I thought you said it was George who was kidnapped.
George is a girl. Her real name's Georgina.
Oh, I see. Well, I bet old Gringo's at the bottom of it. Last week he went off up to London. Told my pa he was onto a big job. An American job, he said it was.
It sounds as if it fits. Spiky, this kidnapping happened the night before last. Did anything unusual occur in the fair camp, do you know?
No, I don't think so. Gringo's big double caravan is still there, so he can't have gone. He had it moved right away from the camp yesterday morning. Said there was too much noise for his old ma, who lives in his posh caravan and looks after him.
I suppose you...
I've got an idea. Suppose that caravan was moved for another reason. Supposing somebody was making a row inside the van. Somebody shouting for help.
Yeah, could be. I've never known Gringo move his caravan away from the camp before. Shall I do a bit of snooping for you?
Yes. My word, it would be a bit of luck if we could find George so quickly.
Let's all go to the fair this afternoon. Timmy too. He'd smell out George at once.
The boys and Joe set off to the fair about 3:30 on their bicycles. Joe rode Anne's and Timmy ran beside them. They came to the fair and met up with Spiky, who pointed out Gringo's caravan. Julian suggested that they bought a ball which they could play with near the caravan. Then one of them could throw it too hard, and it would go near the van and give them a chance to peep inside. They wandered round the fair to find somewhere to buy a ball, but there seemed to be none for sale. So they had a go at the hoopla stall, and Julian managed to get a ring round a small red ball. Just the thing. The three of them went to the clear space of the field that separated the caravan from the rest of the camp, and began throwing the ball to one another. Then Julian threw it so wildly that it ran right up to the wheels of the front caravan of the pair. In a trice, Dick and Joe were after it. Joe leapt up on a wheel and looked in at the big window, while Dick ran to the small van that was attached behind the big one. A quick glance assured Joe that the big caravan was empty. Dick peered into the window of the smaller one. At first he thought there was no one there. Then he saw a pair of fierce eyes. The eyes of a small, bent old woman with untidy hair. She looked like a witch, Dick thought. A few seconds later she came down the steps, shouting and shaking her fist at them. The three of them stood their ground as the old woman came right up. Timmy, meanwhile, had slipped inside the second van. He was there half a minute, and then appeared dragging something behind him with his teeth. The old woman started screaming and hitting him. She pulled whatever it was away, and rushed up the steps to the caravan and slammed the door.
If that woman hadn't been old, Timmy would have shown her he was top dog. Whatever was he pulling out of the van?
Didn't you recognise it, Dick? It was George's dressing gown.
Really? My word! Yes, it could have been. But what does that mean? George isn't in those vans or Timmy would have found her.
No, but there's no doubt she has been in that caravan. Where is she now, I wonder?
She must have been dressed differently. They must have had to dress her properly when they took her somewhere else.
Look, Spikey's beckoning to us. Let's see what he wants. What is it, Spikey?
I just saw Gringo's old ma chasing you. She seemed pretty annoyed.
She was, especially when Timmy got hold of George's dressing gown.
So where is she?
That's what we'd like to know.
Well, I've got a bit of information. It seems that this afternoon, before the fair opened, Gringo got his car and towed the little van out of the field. He said it needed repairing.
And when did the van come back?
Just before you came. It was gone an hour, I should think.
An hour? Well, suppose it goes at an average speed of 25 miles an hour. That would mean he'd gone somewhere about 12 miles away.
Yes, but there are lots of places within the radius of 12 miles.
I say, which is Gringo's car?
Over there, under that big tarpaulin. It's a silver grey one, American. He thinks the world of it, Gringo does.
American? Of course.
But it's grey, Spikey says.
Nevertheless, let's have a look at it. Well, it's certainly grey. But look at those wings. Bright blue. And that's a nice deep scratch on one of them.
Bit of an accident with a tree, do you think?
Yes, this is the car, all right. Now we need to find out where it went this afternoon.
Spikey, which way did the car turn when it went out of the field gate?
Towards the east, the road to Big Twillingham.
But what do you propose to do, June? Bike over to all the towns which can be reached in half an hour and ask if anyone has seen the car?
No, I'm going down to the garage to see our friend Jim. I'll ask him to ring up any friends he has in the garages in those towns and ask him if they've seen the car passing through. They'd certainly remember it if they had.
They discovered there were 6 towns which could be reached in about half an hour from Big Twillingham. Julian's friend Jim was quite willing to ring up the garages. He knew boys working in main garages in 4 of the towns, and he knew the hall porter of a hotel in the 5th town, but he knew no one in the 6th. Jim started with a garage in Hillingford, but his friend there said no car like that had come through. He got the same reply from his friend Jake at Green's garage in Lowington. Next he rang the hall porter, who was a cousin of Jim's. He did have some news. He said he was in a shop in the main street of Gracefield when this enormous car had driven up, silver grey with blue wings. The driver had got out and come into the shop for some cigarettes. Jim's cousin noticed he had dark glasses on and a big gold ring on his finger. Not only that, when he got back into the driver's seat, he had called out to whoever it was in the back of the car to ask directions. And the reply had come, "Not far now. Intertwining, turn to the left, and it's the house on the hill." What luck! Julian, Dick and Joe sped back to Kirrin Cottage, too excited even to talk. They flung their bicycles against the wall and ran in to tell Anne and Joan. Timmy and Sally sensed their excitement and danced around, barking loudly.
We know where George is! We know!
Well, I must say, Julian, it was really smart of you to make Jim ring up like that. What are you going to do now? Ring up that sergeant?
No, I'm so afraid that if the police get moving in on this now, they'll alarm Gringo and he'll spirit George away somewhere else. Dick and I will go to this place tonight.
I'm coming too.
You are not. That's flat. You are not coming, Joe. But I shall take Timmy, of course.
We really ought to ring the police.
Joan, you sound like a parrot. If we're not back by morning, you can ring up all the police in the country if you want to.
Well, I'm glad to say your uncle is better and they're coming home as quickly as possible, Julian. I had a phone call from your aunt today.
Did they tell you anything about Berta's father?
Oh, he's hanging on to his secrets happily now that he knows it isn't Berta who's kidnapped. I don't know if the kidnappers even know they've got the wrong girl yet. It's all hush-hush. Even your aunt and uncle are having to obey the police. Your poor aunt is so terribly upset about George.
Yes, she must be frightfully worried. We've had so much excitement today that I've almost forgot to worry.
Well, you be careful you don't go and land yourself in trouble.
We'll be careful. Don't worry about us. We'll set off as soon as it's dark. Joe, you'd better go home after supper.
Joe disappeared with many messages to Berta from Dick, Julian, Anne and Sally. Joan went up to bed at 10 because she was tired. Anne stayed up to see the boys off. At last the time came for them to go. It was 11:45, and except for a small moon, was a dark night with great clouds looming up. They set off on their bicycles, with Timmy loping along beside them. They knew the way by heart, for they'd studied the map so well. They rode through the silent, tiny village of Twining and took the lane to the left. It led up a steep, narrow lane which came to some iron gates. Julian climbed over them without much difficulty. They were bolted, not locked. He slid the bolts carefully and opened one gate a little for Dick and Timmy. Then, keeping to the shadowed side of the drive, they walked towards the house. The small moon came out from behind a cloud as they came near. It was an old house with high chimneys, an ugly house with narrow windows that seemed like watching eyes.
Why do you keep looking round?
I know I'm an idiot, but I've got that feeling that someone else is there.
Well, we're here now. But how are we going to get in? The doors are sure to be locked. We'll have to try the windows. No good. Let's try the ones round the other side. Nothing. We've been round the house 3 times now. No door, no window we can get in, no ivy to hang on to. Nothing.
What's that then?
What?
There! It's a coal hole. Why didn't we see that before? I suppose the moon was in last time we came round this part of the house.
Could it be a trap?
I don't see how it could be. Come on, let's get down. Look, there's a whole lot of coke down there. We can easily jump on it. Tim, you go first. Right, now me. Now you, Julian.
Oof. Shine your torch around, Dick. Let's see where the door is.
Over there. See some steps?
Right, let's go. What was that?
What?
Didn't you hear it? It sounded like someone treading on the coke.
I hope nobody's shadowing us. I don't want to end up a prisoner too.
A cat. It was only a cat. Come on, let's get up these stairs.
Shall I open the door?
Yes, but be careful, and let's hope it's not locked.
Right, now to work. Where shall we start looking?
Upstairs, I should think. In the bedrooms.
Right. Shh. I'm sorry.
What's that? I can hear somebody.
Is somebody snoring? That's not George.
I can hear someone breathing heavily in this room too. That's not George either.
There are some more stairs. Let's go up there and look.
These two rooms seem to be empty.
This one isn't. I can hear loud breathing. Sounds like a man.
There's someone asleep in this one too. It sounds like another man.
There don't seem to be any more rooms. Below. Where's George then?
Look, there's a little wooden door there. A door leading into the cistern room, I should think.
She wouldn't be there. But wait a minute. There's a strong bolt on the door. Why would a cistern room need a bolt?
Shh, not so loud. Yes, that's funny, I must say. But how are we going to get that door open without waking the people in those other rooms?
We'll shut their doors first. Very quietly. We'll lock them. I'll go and do it.
Quietly.
I will.
Right. Now let's see what's in here. Shine your torch in, Dick.
Look, in the corner. There's someone lying on that mattress.
Is it?
Yes.
What is it? Who?
Shh. It's us, George. Dick and Julian.
And Timmy. Oh, Timmy, I missed you so.
Are you all right, George? Have you been treated well?
Not very, but then I didn't behave very well. I did lots of kicking and biting, so they locked me in here.
Poor old George. You can tell us everything when we've got out of here.
Right.
Shh. Not a sound. I'm going to open the door. Now we'll go down the stairs.
What is it?
That cat. Dick's tripped over it. Dick, are you all right? We're coming down.
Timmy, come back!
What? Who's there? Kids, get them! Yeah. Gotcha!
Tim!
Get in there, you lot!
Get him, Tim!
Out of there for that dog, he's dangerous! Well, push the kids in there! Watch out for him! Get inside!
That wretched cat. If it hadn't been for him, we wouldn't be locked up together here, with Timmy outside.
And we so nearly managed to escape.
I can't think what will happen now. Timmy's out there and can't get into us. We can't get out because the door's locked, and those men won't dare set a foot outside their door while Tim's there.
And we've locked the people into their rooms upstairs. Well, it's certain that nobody can get out of their rooms to help anyone else. So it looks as if we'll all be here till doomsday.
How did you find me here anyway?
It's a long story. We'll tell you when we get out of here. If we ever do.
I say, Timmy's very quiet all of a sudden. What's happened?
Dick, Julian, where are you? Gosh, it's Jo. What's she doing here? We're in here, Jo. Unlock the door.
Oh, thank goodness.
Let's get going.
Just one thing.
Where are you off to?
To lock our friends in next door. And there they can stay until the police arrive in the morning. They can collect the whole lot. The men upstairs, too.
We'll let them think Timmy's still guarding them, though.
Good idea. We're off now. And you better look out for that dog in case he gets you.
Let's go.
You bet.
And how did you get here, Jo? You were forbidden to come.
I know, but I took Anne's bike and followed you.
I kept feeling there was someone behind us. And there was. It was you, you little horror.
Yes, it was me. Honestly, I thought you would never see that coal hole. So I took the lid off, hoping you'd see it then. And you did.
What shrieks and shouts there were from Joan and Anne when the four arrived back at Kirin Cottage at last, at 3:30 in the morning. The stories had to be told again and again. First Dick, then Julian, then George, then Jo. They all talked without stopping. Joan cooked breakfast, and then everyone went back up to bed. Julian was asleep as soon as his head fell on the pillow. In 2 minutes, everyone but Joan was asleep too. She stopped to give Timmy a drink, and then went to lie down, thinking she would just have a rest and not go to sleep. but in half a second she slept too. The sun rose higher in the sky. The milkman came whistling up the path and left 4 bottles of milk on the step. The gulls in the bay circled and soared and called loudly, but nobody stirred at Kirin Cottage. A car came up to the front gate, and another one followed. Out of the first stepped Uncle Quentin, Aunt Fanny, Mr. Elber Wright, and Berta. Out of the second car stepped the sergeant and his constable.
Anyone at home? Where is everybody?
Well, they can't still be in bed, surely.
I'll go and see. They're sound asleep up here. Dick and Julian. I'll check Anne's room. Yes, Anne's here too. And good gracious, George is here, Quentin. Quentin, George is here.
Well, how can she be?
Oh, is that you, Mother? You're back.
Yes, but how did you get here? We thought you were...
I was, but Julian and Dick rescued me.
Oh, well, I think you'd all better come downstairs and explain what's been happening. Come on, all of you.
And it was Gringo, who owns Gringo's Fair, who was paid to kidnap Berta.
Gee, really?
But he kidnapped George by mistake. We found out where Gringo had taken her and went to rescue her last night. You go on, Dick.
Gringo and somebody else are locked up in a room on the ground floor, and we've left 2 other people locked up in a top floor room. We've also left the front door open. So don't be too annoyed, Sergeant, because we really have tried to make things easy for you. We've rescued George, and now you can get the men.
Well, look alive, man. They'll escape before you can get them if you don't hurry.
Well, what's the address?
I don't know. But if you go through Twining, turn left, and it's the house on the hill.
And how did you find out all this?
It'd take too long to tell you now.
And I think we've talked long enough. I could do with some coffee. And you, my good man, do go and catch your kidnappers.
Oh, yes. Right, well, come on, Constable. Well, this is a happy ending. And I can take my little Berter back with me after all.
Oh, no.
What do you mean, Berter?
Gee, Pops, be a honey and let me stay on here. These kids sure are wonderful.
Wonderful! Wonderful! Oh, yes, and you sure are wonderful too, Timmy.